Yeah, so I do have a new transcription actually that I just performed recently, so that'll be fun. The other thing I wanted to show, I did, this is a while ago, I did show Schubert's Opus 90 impromptus, and in between each one I actually improvised going from one piece to another, and I think that's kind of an interesting use case for it. And so that'll be the showcase part, and then we can talk a little bit more about like techniques to get students to improvise, or even for yourself to kind of process-oriented way of being comfortable with improvising, because I've done some of that with my students too, and there are many challenges. I think I don't know if many of you feel this way, but it can be very overwhelming if you don't maybe feel comfortable harmonically. You know, you play something and it sounds wrong. It's not what you want, and I think the issue with that is we're kind of too stuck when we improvise to think we're going to play something like Chopin or Mozart. And I think that's the way to do it, is to really actually go for something that's a bit more, I don't want to say modern, but like, you know, based on some fundamental aspects of music. So we'll talk about that. Let me first find it. I don't know, let's see with this screen sharing audio thing if it'll work, but let me find where it starts first. I also don't know if it's too soft, so we'll have to. Sorry. 2 seconds. Okay. All right. Let me share screen with this. Sorry. This is what happens when you're 6 a.m. in the morning, and so. Oh, you have to allow me to share screen.
Oh, okay. Just yeah. Cool. Wait. Is it?
I think if you click on me, and you can make co-host, or.
Okay, let me text, because I'm not the host for now. Let me ask.
Oh, I see.
Is it working now?
Let me see. No, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So let me see if I can do it another way.
Okay, I can do it.
We have wait. Oh, now you're the host. Okay, it says you're the host now. So.
Okay.
All right, got it. Thank you. All right, share sound, optimize video clip. All right. Okay, so can you all see?
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
Let's stop, eh? Right now, it's not playing. Bravo. Wow, that's spectacular.
Okay. Can you all hear me still?
Bravo, bravo.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It was. Anybody know the piece?
It's like the last movement of Beethoven Ninth, but you.
Uh, no, no. So it's the Mendelssohn octet, the Mendelssohn
Yeah.
octet to the last movement. It's such a great piece. If you don't know it, I suggest you listen to the whole piece. But the last movement is thrilling, and one of the challenges for this is when you do an orchestral transcription, you are able to. I think the individual voices matter less. It's about the whole thing. And when you have a smaller chamber ensemble, it's a quartet or octet. I feel like each voice becomes more important, and so what you choose to include or leave out in your arrangement becomes very crucial. And there's a lot of leaving certain notes out just so you can play something else and then going back in. So if I let me pull up the score just for you guys to see a little bit, and then we can get to actually doing some improv exercises. Let's see. And, okay. There we go. And then let me screen share something. So I think one of my, I'm pretty proud of the ending where I'm able to do different voices. So I will do another screen share here. Here we go. All right, so if I can highlight this part, is that better? Okay. Here we have the melody at the top, and then if you can see the alto voice, the lower voice of the treble clef is shared in between the right hand and the left hand, especially when the right hand's playing the top line, the left hand gets duties with the melody, and you'll see there's certain rests, like here, it's supposed to be a C, I guess, and then here it's supposed to be an F, but since our ears are drawn to the top notes, I found that I could omit it and it would still be, passable. And it actually feels pretty good to play once you've kind of gotten it into your fingers. It's pretty natural, especially, it looks kind of crazy at first with the left hand going up and doing all that, but it actually, I think, works out pretty well. So I'll just scroll through. You can see there's a bunch of hand sharing. It's a lot of fun to make it work, and I think half of the fun of these arrangements is, you can sit down and you write it, right, and you can make it work on paper, but then when you get to the piano and you really have to play it, not just play it, but up to speed, up to the tempo that it's supposed to be at, it's like the second part of the puzzle. The first part is sitting down and writing it and making it work just on the score, and then the second part is actually physically choreographing your hands and making it actually work. And it's interesting because your hands, if you've played piano a long time, I think everyone has certain gestures that feel comfortable to them, or certain just natural motions or natural things your hands do if you don't think about it too much. And I think that's why transcriptions are so special when you do it for yourself, because I don't think anybody else could have written this transcription this way, right? Because it relies on how my fingers move and how my hands move. So even if somebody else were, a really great pianist, arranged a lot, and they sat down to do it, they would probably come up with something completely different, and it might still sound great. But it's just kind of cool that it's like a thumbprint, it's unique to you, kind of thing. So, yeah. Do you have anybody have any questions about this? We could do more Q&A about arranging, but I think we can move on to the improv stuff.
Yeah, it's such a big piece. The theme that we hear is ta da 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 da.
Right. Yeah. But
so it sounds
there's
like
so much other stuff.
So I thought it was like maybe taken from this piece and you make this your own. I didn't know it was
right. No. Yeah. Right. It's the same theme as in Messiah.
It's the same thing, right?
Handel Messiah. Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Handel. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it's it's very common, I think, writing counterpoint doing circle of fourths, I guess, but yeah, I recommend, if you don't know this piece, to go listen to Octet, the original version. It's really okay. So let's see if I can move the webcam a little bit. So let's see if everyone can hear.
It's good.
Kind of loud. Is it too loud?
No, it's just right.
Okay, all right. Then I won't change it. Okay, so doing improv, everyone sits down and they want to do, like. And if you play church, or if you do cabaret, or like play at bars and stuff, you could maybe get to that kind of thing. But I think for people who don't have that background, to tell them to sit down and improvise can be very daunting, right? So one of the things I like to do, and last time we covered something like we worked with a piece and then we kept one thing, kept everything similar except changed one thing, right? And then we do more and more. This time I want to try. I usually tell my students to only think about a third. Let's say you can only use the interval of a third to do improvisation, and you know the point is that you don't want to do something harmonic. I want them to be like. And I think the important thing is getting them to experiment with textures and contrast. Like music doesn't necessarily need tonal confident practice harmony to have a narrative, to have us tell a story. And I think kind of letting them forget about that and just use intervals is very helpful to kind of focus on what's important about music, right? So um, that was block thirds. You could even do, separated thirds, and ask them. And I would maybe put another constraint or two. Like once they get a little bit more comfortable, you could say, "I want you to do thirds, and also experiment with tremolos." So then you say. Just and yeah, it's very like elementary. It doesn't sound like music, but I think knowing what tools you have, emotional expressively is important. So you could do that. You could then say, I want you to improvise on thirds, but you give them emotion, maybe like a like do something happy with thirds. Obviously there's still a little bit of tonality and there's kind of C majory, but I think again getting them to search inside themselves musically. What does it mean to have something that's happy, sad? That's very basic, but even more complicated, like uh, depressed, anxious, or excited, surprised, all these things. And I've done it with my class to varying degrees of success. There's some people who are just a little bit more afraid of, you know, doing something on the piano that's not something they've practiced, right? So, they just require a little bit more hand holding. Um, but I'm pretty happy with most of the students have, you know, I think they sort of love hate it. They kind of dread it, but they actually enjoy it when I make them improvise stuff in studio class. Um, so yeah, so there's that. You can then branch out for not only intervals. You could do chords. You can do octaves, like channel. And again, this is just to make sure they don't like think harmonically, right? So you just it's just to get them to have fun on the piano, really. And I think that's probably the most important thing about improvisation is that it's like you have to be a kid again and just play on the piano and not care about like what's right or wrong in a way. Um, and then I guess the last thing to say about like when a student feels a little bit unsure is repetition is great. Like if they find something they like, they just like they have them feel free to like repeat things, right? Because like even if you just like they just repeat that, you can see like a Schoenberg kind of piece or something. And it allows you time to think about what you want to do next. kind of like late list or something, yeah. And even that, you say like, oh, there's harmony and stuff, but really, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about like playing with the sounds, and uh, yeah. I think the hardest thing really is, at least for the students that I have who struggle with it, is the concept of not being right or wrong. Like, do you guys know Bob Ross, the painter? I don't know, in the States, he used to do just like paint stuff on PBS, our public arts channel, public channel when we were kids, and he would just start with a blank canvas and he would paint on TV, and there's never any mistakes. He just like do whatever, and he's always happy little mistakes. Let's turn this into a tree or turn this into whatever. And I think kind of letting go on the piano and not having something be absolutely needs to be this way or else it's bad. Um, which is hard because when you go to conservatory or you study music, it's what your teacher tells you, and you need to do that. If it's not right, uh, uh, then they don't like it or it doesn't sound good. But I think crucially, when you leave school, when you don't have a teacher anymore, then how do you know how do you decide what's right or wrong? Like, you don't have your teacher to ask anymore. So developing requires you to experiment, not follow the markings, but just kind of go crazy with it. I used to, but I don't know if I did this last time, but if you play, oh jeez, so it's very loud. Okay. So you write the Chopin etude. You could do like, let's say, we'll play it in C major. I mean, obviously, when you first start off, it's not going to be like, but you just like maximal, like you just play with octaves with chords, and you even do the same key, and see where your fingers kind of take you. Um, so I'm constrained into what they think music should be like. Um, so let me look for a. Sorry, I have to. Uh, the the thing I did with the Schubert. So the Schubert impromptus, there are 4 of them, right? Oh, I might have to. Okay. And they're all different keys. First one's in C minor. Okay, let's see here. That's not right. Second one's in E flat major. Third one's in G flat major. And last one's in, was it G sharp minor or A flat major? A flat minor. I forget. G sharp. Yeah.
No,
I
Opus 90, right? Yeah, very popular.
yeah, Opus 90. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Let me just listen to this. I have to make sure I find. Okay. All right. So, okay. Okay, that's not it. Sorry, I'm. This is done during the pandemic, so I'm looking through all my uh, videos. This is how I find it. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, so let me share screen. And this is another way you can force yourself to do some improv. Uh, all right, everybody see?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is the end of I don't know. Is the movie video
it's
playing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's the transition between that, and let me find the next one.
Nice.
Okay, sorry, I have to stop there, and then we'll find
Cool. Yeah.
next one. Let's see. Oh, I think that's after. Let me-
Very nice.
Yeah, so that's I that's not my original idea actually. My teacher at Juilliard, Jerome Lowenthal, his improvisation skills are not so much not so expanded, but he could do a little bit of what he does is like chord progressions to go from one to another, which would be a lot more doable, right? So it's like theory class or piano keyboard skills class if you go to school, right? They say we start at C major and then want to go to E major, right? So you would think, okay, if I want to go to E major, I need to go to 5 first, which is B major. So how to get to B major from C major? Well, we can use I mean you could really just go to the dominant, right? You could go. Right, you could do that, and you could that's the general outline of it. But you could do like if you that's the first one, right? So if you go, yeah, let's see. So we want to just play some stuff in C major, maybe related to um, the first piece. And that's already fine. You just modulated from C to E major, right? Um, and then as you get more comfortable doing that, you can start to do to actually pick a chord for example, if you're going to from C to D flat, then you would use the German chord, right? So this is a German chord of C minor. And you know, romantic composers love to go here, and you don't know where they're gonna go. Back to C minor, or stay in D flat, and then go back. So I think, especially maybe when somebody is more advanced in their studies and they have more of a music theory knowledge to rely on, that's something you can use to tie in with whatever they're doing. So I had a student who was, what did she did, she started, I asked her to do some improvisation. She did, like, she ended up doing something like, and then she got kind of stuck. And I was like, what were you going for? And she was like, well, I was actually going for, the first chord is from Rachmaninoff, second concerto. And it took me a while, but it's the, I can't remember. How does it go? It's like, this one. And so you know, she likes that chord, so we sat down and I say, okay, so first of all, what kind of chord quality is it, right? So if it's, you want to arrange it in thirds. That's kind of, at least in my mind, the easiest way to do it. So we have a ninth, it's a minor seventh with a third on top. Okay, and then you have to make sure you know kind of, okay, so good to know that it's a seventh from the bass. Your thumb is a seventh from the bass. There's C, B flat, we have an octave, and then I think the spiciest thing is here. Right, so that means you have the ninth here, and the 10th or the 3rd here. So you have the 1, 2, 3, and I think that's what people like with the 7th. And then then you ask them, okay, can you play that chord on the D, right? So, okay, on D, 7th from the bass, with an octave, and then we have 9th and 10th. Right, so you start. Yeah. So after you do that, that's fine. Now you kind of get what the chord is, how it's constructed. So now you go back in. Okay, it's sort of C, but this piece is, at least this theme, is E flat major, right? Okay, so that's actually in E flat major. Oh, sorry, if you can see. That's number 6 scale degree, so that's the relative minor. So you would play, let's say you're doing something in E flat major, right? That's what the piece is. You can do whatever you want. Then you incorporate it, right? Let's just say, so ask them to improvise something in, well, first you say, okay, let's do an A major. Can you build that chord, that minor ninth, or that major minor ninth, over the correct scale degree? Okay, so if we're on A, then we have to go to 6, and then now you go from here to build your, is that right? No, I was there. It should be F sharp. Okay, so now you can actually, yeah, and then so fine, you gotta get used to, in that you gotta think about what key you're in, what scale degree that chord you like is on, and then how to build that scale. And then the last thing after all that is that in context. So if you know the piece, so the previous chord is a 1-6-4, a E flat major. So then you say, okay, well, if we're, so it's a 1-6-4, is on the 5th scale degree of the bass, and the 6/4 chord. So it's the same chord as the tonic, but just over the 5. So if you want to do it, like say E major, you want to go with 5. So 5, and then go from there to that chord. And then you have it in context, when you're... I know I go really fast. I'm going really fast, and it's because my but if you sit down with paper and staff paper, and figure it out, that's why I think Roman numeral analysis, even though it's kind of annoying when you're a student and it feels very like dry and not applicable, but when you start improvising, it's very good to have that fundamental foundation in your head. And I find actually when harmonically my most successful improvisations have been when I do have sort of like, I know where I am, and I know I want to go somewhere, and I know how I'm going to get there harmonically, as opposed to just playing, and that's fine. But like, especially like if you really listen to the Schubert ones that I did, you can tell sometimes I'm searching for like, how do I get to the next chord? Yeah, I get stuck in a chord, and I'm like, okay, I need to move on to get to the new chord, and I'll use, diminished chords are great because diminished chords work in many different keys, right? So you could just use that and then go to another key. You could just jump to a dominant like we did in the first modulation exercise, and that's fine too, So, yeah. I know it can be like, when I'm saying this and doing it fast, it can be like, well, of course it makes sense to you because you've done it. But I think that's, you just have to do it. You just have to sit down and force yourself to not be afraid of harmonic analysis and slow down and really think like, okay, what note am I on? I count the intervals, count what scale degree I'm on, and remember, okay, like back in theory, if I have, if I'm on a 4 chord, then usually the 5 chord comes next. If I have, all these things that you can gain intuition for it by just listening to music and playing a lot of music, right? But I think most of us, when we learn pieces, we don't think about it. We just read the notes and we play, and we got to make the notes correct and all that stuff. And we're not like actually analyzing and thinking about how the harmonic structure is. So, if that's something that interests you, I would definitely encourage you to sit down with something that you know or learned before and see how it works harmonically, right? That could even be with pop music. So I remember when I got to Juilliard, we had the ear training test, right? Placement test for what ear training you're going to be in. And there was a dictation portion. And now I think, I'm not sure if a lot of you have perfect pitch. I know, Asian language speakers have a higher probability of perfect pitch. So I'm assuming quite a few of you do have it. But just because you have perfect pitch, right? Just because you know that's sol doesn't mean that you know like what chord that is, right? Whereas the jazz pianist, they might not know that's sol, but if you play that, they can, oh, that's just stacked fourths, right? And so what I think people with perfect pitch need to work on is chord recognition in terms of quality. Instead of just listening to okay, fa, si, mi, la, re, so, oh, okay, so that's fourths. See, that's slow. Whereas jazz pianists, they hear that and they actually, I think they can visualize, right? And when I hear it too, I try to do that. So when I was doing my preparation for the ear training placement test, I actually just put on Chinese pop music and dictate in my head. I'm like, okay, that's 4, that's 5. Is that a 2 of a, is that 5 of 5 or 5 of 2? And then I would, once it, because it repeats, right? So you can check, the next time the verse comes back, you can check and see, okay, maybe, and then you get to the piano and try it out. And so because pop music is, generally not very complex harmonically, but if you have to do it real time and fast, it's still fairly tough if you don't know your especially your harmonic relationships like 1, 4, 5 and things like that. Circle fifths, secondary dominants, things like that. So and don't be afraid to. There's a lot of apps, or you have a digital audio workstation. So just load the file into it and slow it down, or just play one chord and then go on the piano and see if you can recreate that. So, I think the unfortunate thing is developing these skills require a lot of free time. That's in addition to your, practicing, and especially the older we get, the more responsibilities we have, and less free time. So it just becomes harder to find that time to sit down and relax and dedicate something that's not like technically part of your work, right? It's not technically something that you have to do, but it's even if you're not like even if you're a student, like when you get to grad school, there's just so many things to do and so many pieces to learn. Um, so, I think as a teacher, I try to, I use some studio class time to force them to do that because otherwise they wouldn't. And my hope is that once you feel more comfortable improvising, you can, you know, even if you don't do music later on in life, that you can come home from work and relax and just like play whatever, not having to open the music or whatever. You can just sit down and play your mood and relax and be happy. And I think that's in a way what has kept, like, I love music, I love playing piano. That's why I like doing it. If I didn't have that ability to enjoy just playing whatever, I think I would have probably quit piano a long time ago because it's so, lots of practicing. It's very intense, very competitive, and you always have to look for like what's the best way to perform this one piece or whatever. So I think, it doesn't have to be the same kind of improvisation, but I hope all of you can find some way to see the piano not as something that's just work, or just like an instrument for, not just for teaching or not just for performing, but also for your me time.